I'm for truth, no matter who tells it. I'm for justice, no matter who it is for or against. I'm a human being, first and foremost. And as such, I'm for whoever and whatever benefits humanity as a whole. That was a quote from Malcolm X. And I think this is the type of video that requires the intro to be a quote like that. Now, I'm normally the quiet type when it comes to politics, especially if it is politics outside of drag, because I know that there is always going to be the argument that I don't know what I'm talking about because of my upbringing, my race, whatever. So I threw on some black guy merch. His name is Some Black Guy. But I was thinking that I was going to, I'm going to need a little bit more courage, so I got some Malibu Korean, no, not Korean, Caribbean rum with melon liqueur, and just, there we go, perfect, and a bit of Sprite, there we go, and where's that other son of a bitch, here it is, right behind me. This is Fanta Strawberry, because my taste in drinks are trash. Get a little bit of flavor in there. Yeah. Having this baby with no ice because I hate myself. Feel a little bit better already. I want this video to be edited as little as possible because I do think that this is something that needs to be out there, because this is something that I've been thinking about for a few months now. I didn't want to say anything because I wanted to see if somebody else would bring it up, if it would be, talked about a little bit more, but it's not, and that is really bothering me. What is this thing that I'm talking about? Well, it is something that a lot of people like to bring up, which is the death of trans women of color. It's something that every other white queer is crying about right now. Everybody is talking about it and how awful it is, as if, well, one, they say that, nothing's being investigated, which, as someone who's a fan of true crime, and someone who knows how investigations work, they cannot be ultra public with these investigations. But that's not what I'm going to talk about right now, because I do not know the ins and outs of that. What I want to talk about is what I've been seeing that nobody seems to want to discuss because they're all too afraid. The issue that I am discussing is the fact that every single trans black woman that's been killed, aside from maybe, I don't even think I've seen one yet, but you can prove me wrong in the comments, link me examples. Every single one of these trans women, these black trans women, they've been killed by one of their own, by a black, cisgendered, heterosexual man. And that is why I'm repping the Some Black Guy merch, because I want to make it clear that I do not feel this way towards every single cisgendered, heterosexual black guy. There was that, I think it was a Vice article that some BG talked about, where they said that, black people or black cisgendered heterosexual black men are the white people to black people, which, that's one way of putting it, I guess, but I want to go a little bit more detail into that because it's something that's legitimately concerning to me, especially since I started following some interesting people on Twitter who are conservative black women, specifically from the UK. I have started following a lot of them, and I have seen more videos than I ever have before of black men just disrespecting black women. And I don't understand why it's so okay to do that. Just within the community as a whole, it seems like if, again, it's a small sliver of people that are doing it, but then around that sliver are the people that are either endorsing it, or you get a little bit further out where it's not that they're endorsing it, but they're not talking about it, and this is the problem. I hear drag queens go on and on about, oh, my white privilege, oh, my this, my that. I'm going to talk about, the fact that all these black people are dying, but you're not actually saying anything about it because you are being a coward by not pointing out the fact that it's all been black men doing this, and there's a problem within the black community with trans and homophobia. It all technically leads back to the toxic masculinity, which that probably all the way back to being caused by something that happened within slavery. And I am not going to deny that that was an issue, and it is something that still affects people today. But we have the internet now where you can go and you can look up anything. You can look into whatever you want to. Why is it that every single one of these women are being killed by men that should be protecting them? They're in the black community. If they don't have the cisgendered black men to protect them and to help them, and in fact are the ones that are hurting them, they're doomed. They're just fucked. And nobody wants to talk about it. I will come at this as the white queer that I am, which is that I don't even know where to start on this issue. I just happen to have noticed that it's been black men killing these black trans women. And I think, especially living in Seattle, the fact that nobody is talking about that is so disturbing to me. It is very, very unsettling. And I had people like bold-faced lie to me when I asked them, before I looked it up, when I asked, who's killing all these trans women, they've always said, oh, it's cishet white guys wanting to feel power, and I just took it. I was like, okay, makes sense to me, whatever, I didn't believe them, but, I wasn't going to argue it. I go to research it that night, and, the video of that black trans woman getting the shit beaten out of her by, 5 men, and then there's just people filming it. Nobody cares. Everybody just... The transphobia within the black community is not just, misgendering, like we talk about here. People are getting pissed off in Seattle because of misgendering. Black men over in, more, poor areas, down south, just gonna say it, down south on the east side, they still see trans women as men. And it's disgusting. Seeing a trans woman as a man, as long as you don't say anything about it, it's your opinion to have, it is your freedom, your right to, you can even say it technically. I just don't recommend it because in this day and age, you're probably going to get attacked for it. But you cannot actually, first of all, you can't say these things and then expect to not get reprimanded because freedom of speech on your part is also, it protects the person that's going to tell you that you're a fucking cunt. Which, there's going to be people who are going to tell you that you're a cunt. In my opinion, if you don't want to date a trans person, that's perfectly fine. That is a preference. You don't have to do that. If you are with a woman and you don't know that she's trans, there are 3 options that you have, depending upon, of course, where you are. You can either go with it if it aligns with your preference and you're totally fine with that. You can say, no, I'm sorry, I'm not attracted to trans people, in which case if they were to start attacking you, you'd be in your right to attack them, but I also don't want to say that because I know that there's going to be, people who will claim that, oh, they attacked me when I said that I didn't consent, and then that's going to be a whole new layer of bullshit that we're going to have to go through. And then there's, the third option, third option. Which is, a more kinder, also depends because for some reason I always imagine shit like this going on in people's cars. I don't know why. But the third option is to be, overly courteous, where you're like, no, I'm sorry, either we can still be friends, I'll drive you home if you don't feel safe. Because a lot of these black trans women don't feel safe. And ContraPoints brought it up, but does she bring up why white trans people are so much safer than black trans people? No, because then it can get her labeled a racist. And if this gets me labeled a racist, bring it on. Bring it on. I don't care. It is not all cis het black men. I feel like I always have to secure that. I know, honestly, the cis black men up here, totally fine. In Seattle, totally fine. There's an even smaller amount of people that are actually harmful. You get rude comments and shit, but who the fuck, like, what race doesn't have people that will say rude comments? None. Because we're just all human beings. And as one human being to another, when I see not just, black men killing trans black women because, I don't understand their point, and I don't understand why they killed them, but, whatever. I want to still respect them and try to understand their point of view when they say that, oh, I see this trans woman as a man, so that we can help them maybe unlearn that. I don't know. I'm still just trying to figure that shit out alone. But when you go into it and it becomes a crime, when you don't just say, I don't like that you're trans, but then you go and you either beat the shit out of them or kill them, that's not right. That isn't right. And that is not me as, a high and mighty, white guy who, oh, I'd never hurt, a woman. This is not me trying to talk to the black community as a whole. This is me trying to talk to specifically the guys who are just being a fucking problem. And you know what? If I wanted to talk to the black community as a whole, this is what I would say, which is try to protect each other. And it sounds like it's been done to death, but sometimes I feel like a lot of times, especially in Seattle, they're so busy watching what the white guy's doing that they're not looking behind them while a trans woman is getting the shit beaten out of her. Sorry, I tried to say them, but then get the shit beaten out of her, and they're black guys, but you guys don't want to say anything because you're too busy watching all the fucking white people. Here's what has to be done. You have to work in teams. There can be a group of people, looking out for the black community from white people, the racist white people, however you see fit. And then there needs to be enforcers for within the community. I think that the reason why the white community, I guess, it feels weird saying that in Seattle because basically everything feels like the white community, but in the white community, there's probably a few reasons why we're not as transphobic and homophobic. One is that when you watch the movies about, the gays and, trans people, it's always white gays and white trans people getting beaten up by white cisgendered heterosexuals and white cisgender that's just what they show. So now we're ultra self-conscious about it. And I didn't get a chance to see Moonlight. That's one of the movies that's on my list. And I know that it's about black gay men. I don't know if they talk about the black community much, but I think there needs to be more of a movement towards not just blaming all black people for some dumb shit that like a small handful of you did. But there needs to be education about gender and about this toxic masculinity that is a problem within rural black communities. It's men that have to prove themselves by beating the shit out of each other, and if it was just happening to trans women, I'd probably still make this video, but I wouldn't be as enraged because now, going back to the women from the UK that I follow, they're posting videos of black men literally ganging up on a single black woman and throwing her into a dumpster. Shit like that. Why is that considered okay to you guys? Why do you not only see it as okay, the 3 people that did this, like the 3 or 4 people that did this, they not only see it as okay, but they have the confidence to film what they did and upload it, which just shows that they believe that they are completely free of consequences for what they did. They believe through uploading that video that essentially her life doesn't matter and that others will be on their side. We have to look at that and say, no, we are not on your side. Whether you're black, Hispanic, white, Asian, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Native American, Indian. I always feel weird when I try to name just 3 races and then it's like, oh, somebody's left out. But we as people, not just as Americans, as people come in, as whether they're tourists or whether they want to move here, we need to watch out for our own people and look for things that lead down toxic roads. And here's the thing that pisses me off, especially as a liberal individual, as I've seen it. You show the pyramids and whatnot of, like, pyramids of white supremacy or pyramid of, homophobia or transphobia. And the very bottom is always shit that, like, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. What does start to matter is, and I'm not one for censoring comedy, but if you're going to use it, like, use comedy, and you're going to make a joke about harming somebody because of who they are, that's just concerning to me, because it depends upon how the joke's told, I'm sure, but I can't think of a whole lot of ways where that's considered okay, especially nowadays. I'm not going to judge shit like what Kevin Hart did 10 years ago. The most that I'll say about that is I can see why people got upset about it. People were saying, oh, but he toured around and he did that a bunch of times. That's not the reason. The reason is that Kevin Hart's entire spiel, if anything, I don't think it should be censored at all. I think more people should be watching it because it reflects the homophobia and the views of gay men and trans women within the Black community. I have a friend who is half Black, came up here from Texas, and her dad, just totally kicked her out. It's like, I believe that the dad was a Black one, but now that I'm thinking back, I also have a friend who is half white, half Muslim, and I know that his Muslim dad does not like that he's trans. And he still fights for Black Americans, and I commend him for that, because I don't know if I could after, I had a parent who was Black American or Muslim American and rejected me for who I am. I don't think I have issue doing that. I'm starting to open up more now, but I'd still have an issue doing that. So I think the general idea is that, again, we need to just watch out for each other. See something, say something. If one of your friends makes jokes about, beating up a trans girl because she has a penis, don't attack them, I should say, because a woman can make that joke too. Though, let's just be honest, we can't say that, men are, physically stronger than women, which is true. It is totally true. Men are just naturally going to be more likely to be stronger than women. You can't say that, but then say, oh, we need to, like, treat the entirety of abuse the same. Individually, yes, we need to treat it all the same. But a woman is more likely to, and even a man is more likely to be abused by another man. Again, it's all, statistics, and that doesn't mean that individually we need to treat them any differently. That's just how it works, and why I use general language like that. Well, going back to what I said, if, your friend, your fella, decides to make a joke like that, don't attack him. Don't get all up in his face. I'd say just ask him if he's being serious, if he would actually do something like that. And if he asks you, why do you say that, tell them about what's going on, how it is a joke that is relevant to the society that we live in. And it is not, it's not something that, like, people always want to be South Park, but they don't quite get the point of South Park. The jokes in South Park are always attacking the people who are ahead. And you are not doing that. I can probably, if you're a man and you're like, I don't want to date a trans woman because I'm insecure that she'll be able to beat the shit out of me, that's honestly legitimate. If that's a concern that you have, it's legitimate. You have to be able to speak more, not be afraid to speak more, but also don't use violence. The whole, the gay scare or the trans scare, whatever the fuck it's called, is completely illogical and unlawful. It should not be allowed to even... It shouldn't have been mentioned in the first place, because murder is murder. Unless the person tried to rape you, it is uncalled for murder. Even if you think that you were tricked into it, just, leave. That's the best thing that you can do, is leave. Say, you know what, I don't trust you anymore because you lied to me for long enough, and I just, whatever. Or maybe you can even say, I don't date trans women, I don't date trans men. That's fine. You don't have to beat the shit out of somebody when they try to hit on you. Do you treat your women like that? I mean, I shouldn't be asking that after I went on a tirade about how black men are in fact treating their women like shit. But would you treat a woman like that? I don't think so. I really don't. And I think that is the basis of the transphobia within certain parts of the black community, is that we see these trans women as women, or at the very least we see them as trans women, which is a type of woman. The men who can bring themselves to beat up a woman like that has convinced himself that this is not a woman, this is a man in a dress. And that is absolutely disgusting, that you're able to use that as an excuse to kill somebody. I'm not upset that you think that in the first place. Again, that is where you can think, and I can judge you depending upon how well you can control yourself. But the minute that you lay your hands on somebody for no reason, it's the same thing whether it's a cop, whether it's, I'm just thinking of cops because that's the main thing right now. Protesters, just general people. Until they lay a hand on you, you have no reason to attack. You have to go on the defensive. Just constantly be on the defensive. There is no reason to be so offensive when going about your day-to-day life. Sorry, I just realized that I'm rambling a little bit, and I probably could have ended this video like 5 minutes ago, but I really needed to get my piece, because I'll say that I want to make a video about specifically the white part of the queer community and their tendency to try to get involved with things that they want to help people, but I think they're a little bit disconnected from some realities. I'm not going to say much more on that. It's going to be a bigger production video. I'm going to have a whole ass script for it. But for this, I just needed to go off on my emotions. And I hope that people can appreciate a mostly unedited video.